So if you've been following my channel for a while, from the beginning especially, you know that the very first boutique label that I really started collecting was Shout Factory during the Roger Corman collection era. And from that came Scream Factory. And I became a pretty avid collector of them for quite a while. Well, there's all kinds of rumors and news and stuff going on, and we've talked about it a bit. But I thought tonight we'd take a bit more of a broad look at this whole thing and how much does this really suck and exactly what may or may not happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no super insider knowledge, just a lot of the base stuff that a lot of people already know. But I want to give my thoughts and my take on this and the good, the bad, and the in between. Rather than do my regular opening, let's look at a little of my Scream Factory stuff. And my Shout Factory too. Hi there. So tonight we're talking about Shout Factory, Scream Factory. Dispelling hopefully some negative vibes, maybe some positive ones, we'll see. And talking with Pixie here. And talking about why this here, box right here, is one of the reasons I'm a bit nervous. What do you think, Pix? Let's get into it. So, before we discuss the importance of this right here and its ilk, we should probably talk about what started this in the first place. All right, so I need to make some coffee, but before I do that, okay, let's stop right here. My Neil Adams section of the room. So some Facebook posts, some different forum posts apparently. I don't go on forums a lot, so I don't really see a lot of that stuff. Talked about the fact that Shout Factory, and it's the parent company, and Scream Factory looked to be maybe in a bit of trouble. See, they'd recently been kind of bought and merged with a streaming service called FilmRise under Oaktree. And they became a Redale, I think, or something that was the new name of the company. Alongside that, there was a big, massive fire sale on the Scream Factory website, and as often happens, and Shout too, and as often happens with mergers and acquisitions, the bad thing happened. A lot of people got fired, and it ran pretty rampant, really quick. That people were saying Scream Factory was gone. Shout Factory might go away too, and that they've been moving away from physical media and into streaming. Now, shortly after that, I reached out to some friends of mine, and I know that a bunch of people came on and they said, no, I don't think that's the case. That's not exactly what's happening right now. And that seemed to get rid of a lot of the fears. Until they put out the announcement that their Physical Media Forever club that they started last year was going away as well. But if the other rumor is true, that Groove, how do you pronounce that one? Was taking over distribution for Scream Factory, and their basic, what they were having for distribution with their own website was going away, kind of like Warner Archives did. Then that would make sense. They wouldn't be able to use or utilize a site or a membership that no longer had a site attached to it, and the company that would be now distributing it would probably want to have their own thing that you wouldn't want to be fooling around messing with something that had been there before. So not only was it going away, you had to use your stuff pretty quickly by the end of this month, which isn't a big deal. But still some rumors persisted. I think I'm going to need that cappuccino. So, fill right to the brim, or the top, as my grandparents would say. Well, my grandparents would say the brim, right to the brim. So, the issue was that a lot of the decisions that were being made at the time were familiar. We'd seen them before. We'd seen them with Anchor Bay. A lot of it was very similar to Anchor Bay. And Anchor Bay was another company that, at the time, definitely pre-Stars, that people thought it was here to stay. They were the company. Now, is the sky falling? Oh. I don't think so. But does that mean everything's staying the same and everything is copacetic and nothing's really changing? I don't think that either. I think a lot is changing. I'm not expecting them to get rid of the Scream Factory label itself, the sub-label from Shout Factory, yet. Not as long as it's still profitable and they can still reissue releases. Although I do expect the reissues to become lesser and lesser as they start to lose and not gain back rights for certain titles. I do think that they will go all in on Golden Princess titles, as they should for the amount of money that they put in there and for the amount that people want to see them. And I think, at least right now, all those titles, and with the stuff coming up, we're getting physical media releases. So even with the Anchor Bay comparison, because it is there, it's definitely there, I don't think it's time to rule out or say rest in peace Scream Factory, Shout Factory. I do think that it's changing, much in the way a lot of other companies have changed, and the way things have been changing by far and large. For that, let's kind of talk about how a boutique label comes to be, the secret genesis of the boutique label, for a second. So you see, boutique labels don't normally start out being, hey, I'm going to be a boutique label. Maybe they do more so now, but not in that day, not in the day of Scream Factory. It was more of a rarity. It wasn't a common occurrence. Most of these labels started out the same way, and we'll use a Criterion factor. See, Criterion, when they were Laserdisc, had a lot more mainstream stuff, a lot more stuff that you'd probably assume companies like that would have. Things like Robocop, things like Silence of the Lambs. Now, you're probably thinking, hey, don't they have a lot of that stuff now? Well, yes, because now they're Criterion. With the Criterion name, they can afford it. They couldn't always, though. They needed something to make them stand out. They needed a gimmick. See, they couldn't afford mainstream releases, and they didn't have, and their name wouldn't give them the mainstream releases for cheaper. Companies don't work that way. That's not the way that it works. So what exactly does that mean? So they got to find their niche, the way that they're going to go. All right? And for them, at the time, foreign releases and some of the fringe, art cinema stuff, well, that wasn't so expensive to pick up. And people weren't exactly clamoring for it. Because remember, Criterion did this stuff before people were doing it. So how do you sell stuff that a lot of people don't know about, that's never been in your country before, or that it's kind of untested, especially with a larger audience. Well, it's foreign. You use some directors that are pretty well regarded. You become the film school in box. You show films from different parts of the world. True cinema. Cinema that cinephiles will love. And once that catches on, and obviously it did, then those companies, when you go back to them to that well in the future, it may be more expensive to get those releases. It may actually, after a while, become a bit cheaper to get those releases that you couldn't afford before. But by this time, you build up a name. You're a boutique label. You have an audience. You have people that are depending on your stuff and know exactly what you are. So as long as you get that imprint in there to let them know what you are and the type of company you are, then it works really well. Now, over the years, some companies that become boutique labels move away from what they initially made them popular in the first place. Some people would say Scream Factory did that. I need more cappuccino, so let's go up there. Whew, let's stay put for a while. I'm getting dizzy. Every time a label goes away or changes, that opens the market up for other potential people to come in and take over the slack of what that label did. Now, that can be an amazing opportunity for a company just waiting to get that extra foot in the door to put out those releases and titles and to become the heir apparent. Trust me, at this point, it's a matter of time before a company out there is looking at Vinegar Syndrome and looking to be, hopefully, the heir apparent to them. Not that they'll go away, but become the bill of the ball that companies like Vinegar Syndrome have become. And in more recent times, Def Crocodile and Radiance, two of the best companies on the go right now. I said it. But the other thing that happens with that is when they switch over, they're going to want to do and take the most popular aspects of what came before them. So each time, I find anyway, that the risks that the companies take that are taking over, that are taking the newer titles, or taking the titles that they used to have, lessens a bit. And what that means is, for a lot of us, titles will fall through the cracks. Each physical media generation, there's been titles that haven't made it to the next one. Now, I think we've been very lucky with the Blu-ray and 4K recently. We've gotten stuff that didn't come out since the days of VHS, and sometimes not before that. Now, I will say sometimes you can look at a title and say, oh yeah, I get what that one never came out before. Maybe it's not always a great thing, but I don't know. I think everything physical media-wise, film should hopefully get a release, a physical release you can hold in your hand, which is even harder to do as more people jump onto the digital bandwagon. And you can do both. There's nothing saying that one has to negate the other. You can have digital releases. You can like streaming like platforms and channels and still have a decent physical media release, like library. So why the type of T.J. Hooker? And I think by now you kind of figured it out, right? You know where we're going. So T.J. Hooker was a series that I watched a lot when I was a kid. William Shatner, Adrian Zmed from Grease 2. The best Grease. Yeah, I'm saying it. Heather Locklear from season 2 on. And it was in the first season. I think it was, they don't say. I wanted to cheat and have them say. But they don't say. But we also got James Darren here as well, who I thought was fantastic in this. And the guy from the V, the series. Remember the series V? He's one of the visitors. Well, he's in the show as well. So what's really nice is this was a really cool series, and it lasted for 5 seasons. See, Shout Factory, I guess we need a little bit of history here. Shout Factory sort of spawned from Rhino. Rhino did records and like soundtracks and stuff. But Rhino also did some films. He did some. They brought Mystery Science Theater to physical media, and became a massive hit. So when Rhino went out of the whole thing, a lot of people from Rhino became Shout, and Shout continued the Mystery Science Theater and put their own spin on it. Did it differently than Rhino was doing it. I actually have Rhino releases for Mystery Science Theater, and I have Shout Factory releases. Now, one thing I will say, my very first Mystery Science Theater was a Rhino release. It was the Essentials, which was a 2-pack. Come on, baby. So, and at the time, I couldn't afford to buy the box sets. They were way, way too expensive for me, and I was not in the place in my life where I had the disposable income to do that. It was really nice when Shout Factory put them out, and they seemed to be a bit cheaper and kind of went on sale a bit more. I was able to buy some of them, and as I gained more disposable income, I bought more. I probably should have bought more now, though I think that's safe. I mean, if it's a Friday the 13th, if it's a Halloween, if it's one of any of the horror films, the niche horror films, the not so niche horror films, unless like a rights issue comes up, like it's kind of what's happening right now with the first 3 Amityville films, you're probably going to get them again. You're going to see it again. And you know this because 9 chances out of 10, you bought Vinegar Syndrome titles, and because you're watching my channel. And that means you've probably had some stuff from Shout or Scream Factory that got put out by Vinegar Syndrome, especially in the last year or so. Yeah, me too. Death Wish 2, some of the double features. There's a whole ton of stuff. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, because unless you got a subscription, you don't have to buy every single title. But stuff like TJ Hooker, stuff like Police Story, stuff like The Bold Ones, stuff like the Colbys, they were niche. They're niche of a niche as it was. The Colbys is a spin-off of the popular Dynasty TV series, which did get a complete release, and was amazing that the Colbys actually got a release. But the fact that it was only 2 seasons and made it easier to do, and it came out during the time a lot of those kind of nighttime soap operas were starting to get like box sets and stuff like that, was pretty good. And Shout Factory was willing to take that chance. Now, is there anyone in the stratosphere that would take the chance now? There's one company. It's a company that's really starting to make an imprint. From Night Gallery to Kolchak to the Jerry Anderson stuff, which Shout Factory also put out all those of. Imprint Films is becoming the go-to for that. Now, I know what you're going to say. Some of the stuff is gone up from Kino, right? And Kino has a pretty good track record for a lot of the physical media TV releases that they do. I would agree, and I think they do a fantastic job, but I'm a massive fan of Kino, and I like their stuff. But I think if anything's going to save the TJ Hookers and the police stories of the world, it's places like Imprint, especially a thing like Police Story. And I'm not sure how safe that is. Along with, they put out Hill Street Blues, NYPD Blue. And I've only got the first 2 seasons of Hill Street Blues, and I desperately want the rest of that. Haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure I might say elsewhere that I have only 1 season of came from Shout Factory as well. If so, not gonna lie, getting nervous. So where does it leave us exactly? Well, me sitting here in the middle of the night drinking cappuccino with a kitten on my lap. But more than anything else, it leaves us in a time of slight uncertainty. It's not a sky is falling time. It's not the end of physical media. And I don't think it's the end of Scream Factory or Shout Factory. Now, that being said, I don't think it's exactly a boom time either. I think there's the potential for a lot of mistakes to happen here, and for things to go away and not come back for a while. And maybe some not to come back. Look, if everything got put out in physical media tomorrow, every single thing that ever was there, we can't probably take it all, whether it's cost, real estate in your house, time to watch the films. Certain, so you curate. And the way things are going right now, with releases getting more expensive, with price definitely becoming more of a factor, with more premium releases, so that you really feel like you're getting a bang for your buck. I never thought about buying the Keep when Vinegar Syndrome put it out. I've seriously considered buying it now with the imprint release. It's just more, it's the same film, but there's more to it. And being somebody that likes to study films, especially films that are as troubled and as problematic as something like The Keep, having the screenplay and the book and all that, see that interests me. That's something I want in my collection. Because just as The Keep itself, as hypocritical as it sounds, I didn't really want it. The fact of having the film and being able to study the pitfalls, the impact, and the topsy-turviness of it, much like the Spookies, it interests me now. But all these things get more expensive. And higher cost means that there's less that you can get at one time. Now, you can avail of the sale. Definitely do that. 100% think you should do that. But when you're picking up a premium release, and more releases are going to go the premium route, you're going to have some more time curating and thinking about what you want, what you really want, what you really, really want. It's not a bad thing, though. See, none of these are sky-falling, disastrous, horribly bad things. Now, am I worried about certain ones? I'm very worried. I'm worried that I'll never get a complete physical media release of Police Story, which was one of my favorites growing up. Joseph Wamba show kind of paved the way for things like Hill Street Blues and even shows like St. Elsewhere and stuff like that. Am I concerned that T.J. Hooker? Well, not really, because I've got it. But if I went to like a pawn shop or like a Value Village and I saw like another set of T.J. Hooker for like $5 or $10, would I buy it as a backup copy? Damn Skippy would. I really would. I'm not here to answer your questions. Maybe I'm here to ask some more. I can't tell you things are going to be okay with Scream Factory and Shout Factory. I don't know. I'd be lying to you. I'm lying to myself if I said I could. But I can't tell you that it's not going to be okay either. I can tell it's going to be different. From experience in the past, it's going to be different. But collecting is changing. Curating isn't something that you just say. When I started to say the word curating, I felt like, oh, it's that fancy word. That's because I feel bad saying the word collecting. But no, I'm a collector, 100% a collector. But what the cost things are, with how hard some stuff is to ship in different areas and stuff like that, yeah, you have to curate that collection that you have. So you become a collector and a curator. And that's kind of cool, right? It lets you really decide what you want to get, what things speak for you, speak to you. I started collecting 14 years ago, all over again, 15 years ago, with Shout Factory. My very first releases, me and my better half actually together. I picked up the Slumber Party Massacre trilogy on DVD. She picked up Piranha. We were both extremely happy because Shout Factory had reached into our young brains and put out two of our absolute favorite releases from our youth. I was a massive fan of the Slumber Party Massacre series. My better half was an insanely big fan of Piranha. It was a place where we connected early on in my collecting. I didn't forget that either. It's not always easy when you're collecting something worth movies or comics or video games or whatnot, especially a niche. And this is a niche of a niche, really. Because collecting movies in general, there you go. That's a bit of a niche itself. But collecting boutique labels, that's a niche of that niche. So if you are lucky enough to find somebody that has a slight interest in what you like when it comes to that. And we won't always have the same level of interest. Most of the time you won't. But if you can find places where you really kind of intersect with that, it's something you remember, right? So for me, with my better half, she loved that film, and she really loved the Roger Corman collection that they put out early on. This would follow her over to like Kino and to Criterion, which were labels that me and her really found movies that we loved together. So yeah, Shout Factory and Scream Factory have a very personal place in my heart. I'm nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I was a bit bummed too. I spoke to my better half. We chatted about it for quite a while. She sat me down. She gave me the talking to, like she always does. And she said, "Remember, things will always be in flux. Things will always change. But rather than that being a bad thing, rather than that be a negative, oh, woe is me, take the time to grieve a bit, but then be excited about what could possibly come next." When Anchor Bay went, it was massive. And some people called it because they were putting a lot of like Evil Dead releases, a lot of Halloween releases, a lot of re-releases and stuff like that. Sound familiar at all? And eventually they went. And it was a rough time, but we got the Underground, and we got stuff like Grindhouse releasing, and we would get eventually Scream Factory and Shout Factory. When Rhino went, I was very nervous about the state of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And now I have some of the great anniversary sets of Mystery Science Theater 3000, not from Rhino, but from Scream Factory. So yeah, I'm a bit sad, a bit unsure, a bit nervous. Also a bit excited to see where it's all going to go. I can't change what's going to happen or not going to happen. I just take it as it is and enjoy it. Streaming's not going anywhere. Digital's not going anywhere. I don't think physical media is going anywhere either. Things are just changing up a bit, and that's okay. And hopefully, a year or two now, we'll find out about the amazing releases that Shout and Scream Factory are putting out. There's a good chance also that they won't be. But there will be. If not Scream Factory, if not Shout Factory, a successor. When it's such a big company, you can get a bit nervous. I know I do. Because does this mean the end of like physical media? But here's the thing. There's been so many companies like coming up. Not every company can make it, and just with people that are passionate, and they'll gravitate towards things just like Criterion did. They'll come in and they'll look towards being able to start up a label with stuff that they're passionate about, that they love, but also that they can afford, because they know there's going to be certain releases that they're just not going to be able to afford right away. They'll have dream releases that they'll be looking towards getting. Dave Gerger's Severin and his whole, Video Nasties series of stuff that he put out. He had dream releases of ones that he wanted to get, and Flesh didn't Fresh. Flesh was Vinegar Syndrome. For Blood of Dracula, that was one of those. And after a while, with help, from a friend of his, they were able to get that release, get that type of release. So I'm sure, whether Shout Factory is around or not, there'll be a spiritual successor to Shout Factory. Like there'll be a spiritual successor to all these. And they may not get all the same stuff. It may not be like when Anchor Bay went, like we had Scream Factory, right? But we also, on the other side, we got like Arrow Video. And for a certain type of Anchor Bay releases, like maybe the Giallo, so we had like stuff like Snaps come and put stuff out. And we had Severin. You had like Code Red and Scorpion. Code Red and Scorpion, they're not, unfortunately, they're not like around so much anymore either. But we're not seeing a lot of those releases disappear because Kino came in and started Kino Cult. So we started to get a lot of those releases as well. So I'm not going to talk anymore about it. I want to hear your comments in the comment section down below. What do you think of all this? Am I too optimistic? Am I too pessimistic? Am I two in between. I'm just a guy sitting here drinking cappuccino with a kitty cat on my lap, excited about where this is going. Excited but nervous. See you next time, Nicole. Have a wonderful day.
Oh God. Subscription sloth here. Just want to remind you that I know in the summertime especially it can be super warm and lazy. But if you're liking this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to go that step farther and join the Patreon, there's a link for that down below. You can super sticker, super chat, or donate. But above all, just lie back and enjoy the video, because that's what I'm going to do.